Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Real News Extra. My name is Fred. I'm the operations manager here at RELAW APC, and joining me today is the principal and founder of RELAW APC, Jennifer Felten. Hello, Jennifer. Our case of the month involves a trust dispute. So what happened? There's siblings in the case of the month. They're suing each other over a trust?
Yes. So in the case, there's actually 3 children of a mom who wanted to keep the family home in the family.
Okay.
And so she had hired an attorney and prepared a trust, but before she died, she decided to modify the trust herself. So she hand wrote out a modification to the trust wherein she said that any of the 3 kids could buy out the other kids and keep the property for a price that was well below market value for the property. And so one of the kids wanted to buy it below market, and the other 2 siblings said, no, that's not fair. We should be able to get what is fair market value for our portions of the property. And so that's what went to trial.
Okay, so what legal principles did the court use to determine that that amendment was actually invalid?
Yes, so there's rules in place relative to alienation of property.
Okay.
And this goes back to the Constitution and our property rights. So no one can take away your property rights without just compensation and things like that, right?
Okay.
So eminent domain, for example, when the government wants to take your property, there's rules so that they can't just take your stuff. This goes back to England and all the arguments back in the day.
A lot of history.
But so those rules also apply to other people, right? So there's a rule called the rule of perpetuities. So if you went to law school, you had to learn the rule of perpetuities, which says you can't restrict the use of a property indefinitely, right? And so the court took the position that this restriction on this property, this limitation, was in violation of these rules, specifically Civil Code 711 in California, which limits what you can do to restrict the ability of a property to be sold. And so the court said this restriction is invalid.
Okay. What are some of the lessons learned from this court case that people can use to try to avoid their own trust litigation post-death?
Right. So the whole point of setting up a trust is hopefully to avoid having to go to court.
Yes.
So first of all, get good guidance, right? I think this mom, who I feel horrible, right? She had every good intention. She set up a trust and hired good counsel to prepare it, but when she wanted to make a change, she didn't do the same thing. She tried to do it herself, and do it yourself rarely works in the legal context.
Yes.
So first of all, get the right support. Second, make sure that you're thinking about the broader implications of what you're doing, right? So the reality is that this situation isn't fair, right? And the law is not always fair, but our legal systems and our guidelines are designed for fairness and equity, right? Our whole legal system has 2 parts to it. There's the law side, which is the legal contracts, codes, right? And then there's equity. So this all goes back to English common law, and the king handled the laws and the church handled equity, right? Solomon dividing the baby, that's what we're talking about. Right. So what we're talking about is an equitable concept of alienation of property and protection of property rights. So even though mom had every good intention, she's breaking those rules when she's doing this, and that's how we get into this situation. So thinking things through and understanding the long-term implications. If mom wanted one of them to get it, she should have said, let this one get it, right? Versus putting them in a position where they're set up to be in conflict.
Right. Got it. Thank you. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Real News Extra. If you're enjoying this content, I invite you to click on like or subscribe. And of course, click that little bell for future notifications. My name is Fred. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.